NFL Live will be at the draft.
Yeah,
we also went to the Super Bowl, but now we're going to go to the draft. We're so excited. Live from Cleveland starting next Wednesday, including 2-hour specials Thursday and Friday. Mina, Dan, Marcus Spears, Ryan Clark, Shefty, and more. We cannot wait to see you guys in Cleveland at the draft. And exactly 10 days away from the NFL draft. So let's get a couple experts in here to answer 10 questions about the players and teams who will be front and center next week. ESPN draft analyst Matt Miller joins the show, as well as NFL Network's Daniel Jeremiah. Let's go rapid fire. Starting with you, Matt. Who's the most exciting player in this draft?
Oh my gosh, there's so many that we could go with here. I'm going to go Jamar Chase. I think we've forgotten how great Jamar was that last year at LSU 2019, 20 touchdown catches. And I'll throw this out there. In 2019, he was the best receiver in college football then. That includes Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, CeeDee Lamb, those players we saw go first round last year. So Jamar Chase is my dude for this one easily.
All right, let's keep our 10 questions going here. Daniel, who is the most intriguing team in the draft?
I'm going to go with the Atlanta Falcons, Laura, because they have a three-way go. We know the first three picks. At least we know the third pick will be a quarterback. The Falcons have the first true real decision. Do you take a quarterback, do you take another position player, or do you trade out? So that's where the fun starts this year.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see what they do it for. Matt, give me a trade, speaking of, that you want to see happen.
Laura, you know me. I've been trying to get this to happen for 2 weeks. I want the New England Patriots to trade up for Justin Fields. Please and thank you. You have the guy there in Cam Newton who could be the mentor for what you have there. So the Patriots, if they can move up to get one of the quarterbacks, any of the quarterbacks, I would be happy with. But mostly would love to see Justin Fields working with Bill Belichick, Josh McDaniels, and those two beautiful new tight ends they have in this offense.
If it happens, we're giving you all the credit. DJ, give me the best offensive lineman not named Penei Sewell.
Well, by the phrasing of the question, I guess you're saying Penei's the best. For me, he's not. I think Rashawn Slater is the best offensive lineman in this year's draft class. He's got cleaner tape. He plays with better balance. To me, he's a no-brainer. He's going to be an all-pro player. If he slides into guard, he'll be fine in there as well. So I'm a Slater guy.
Slater over Sewell. I like it. Matt, Cowboys, they pick at number 10 overall. What should they do with that pick?
Oh my gosh, we can't trade up for Kyle Pitts, right? Is that off the table?
I think
If that's off the table, then I think you have to look at this defense, which was not good at all last year. I think if they could get one of the corners in this class, whether it's Patrick Surtain II from Alabama, J.C. Horn from South Carolina, grab one of these corners whose dad played in the NFL, and I think you're going to be okay at number 10 overall. But I do think Dallas is an interesting team, whether it's trying to trade up in this draft or trade back, because a lot of the positions they need, defensive tackle, edge rusher, the value is just not there at 10 overall.
Yeah, there's a ton of value in that pick, and I hear you. The Cowboys secondary could really use some help. They allowed a franchise-worst 34 passing touchdowns while forcing just 10 interceptions last year. But even worse, 12 of those touchdowns came on attempts that traveled at least 20 air yards. That's tied for the second most by any team since tracking began 15 seasons ago. Stephen Jones addressed their draft decisions earlier today.
You know, we're starting to get a few calls, and I think it'll only pick up as we get closer to next Thursday. They kind of give you the call, hey, if our guy's there, you know, we'd be interested in moving up to the pick. It ain't going to get some great opportunities because of the depth, not only at quarterback, but offense in general. And, you know, we've made no bones about it, barring something very opportunistic that, you know, we certainly want to improve our defensive football teams.
Mina, is it smart for the Cowboys to be taking these calls?
No, I think Dallas should definitely consider trading down because of the needs that they have on defense. I mean, just going position by position, I've got cornerback, obviously, safety, edge, defensive tackle, depth at linebacker. So basically, if you're keeping score, that is literally every position on defense. Dallas either needs a starter or depth. I understand why they might be drawn to a Patrick Surtain II at 10 or one of the top-tier cornerbacks. But I think their needs are such that it might be advantageous for them to trade down depending on whether or not they could still get a cornerback from, I'd say, that top group of 5 and a defensive lineman. If not, then yes, stay where you are picking and take one of those corners. But see if you can maximize the value for where you're picking because, man, that's a lot of holes.
All right, let's start a fight. If the Cowboys take anything but a defensive lineman, that is a huge mistake. Now, that's their area of need. The conundrum, as Matt Miller pointed out, there's probably not, I'm not the defensive line expert, there's probably not a defensive lineman that's worthy of the 10th pick, right? And so are you going to overdraft a guy strictly to punch in a defensive lineman there? You guys can take the corners. There's probably going to be some really good players there. J.C. Horn, Patrick Surtain. They're not going to be good enough if the defensive line doesn't get better. Dan Quinn's coming over as the defensive coordinator, ex-head coach of Atlanta. He's going to run that predominant cover 3 defense. Every single thing about that defense is built on the defensive line and the 4-man pass rush. Everyone think about San Francisco. When did their secondary start to play really good? When they got Nick Bosa. Everyone think about Seattle, the Legion of Boom. Well, Michael Bennett and Cliff Averill, and that defensive line was dominant. And so Dallas, you could take those corners, but those corners need pass rushers if they're going to just be sitting in zone, letting people run through. So Dallas is in a very interesting and tough spot, to be honest with you, because they need to get a really good defensive lineman. They're just not in the draft this year. And so that's why I would not take one of those corners until I get a defensive lineman.
Mina, scheme's so big here.
Yeah, I would say I'm glad you mentioned Dan Quinn, because Dallas's problem last year was there was no alignment at all between coaching and talent. We know what kind of defense Dan Quinn runs, that cover 3 scheme. And as Orlovsky pointed out, too many Dans again with Dan Quinn. You need to draft players who are suited to that. Like, Matt, I love J.C. Horn. J.C. Horn should be nowhere near a cover 3 defense.
Yeah.
Like, that is a nightmare waiting to happen. And I love the player. He's physical, he is fun, but holy smokes, that would be a disaster in my opinion.
Yeah, and I love what Orlovsky said. Let me get my Dan's straight here. Yeah, Nick Bosa would be great. So would Michael Bennett. They don't exist this year. You're going to have to punt till next year when the defensive line group looks a little bit better. And I'm curious to hear what DJ has to say about this. I think the value actually is better in round 2 at those positions than it could be at round 1. But this is a historically bad interior defensive line class. So, yes, you need that guy. You have to get that penetration to run your cover 3. But we can't just create that player out of thin air. They have to actually exist. This year, I don't see anyone. Maybe if Jalen Phillips didn't have the concussion issues, maybe that would be your guy. But I think what you're going to run into this year is that the lopsided value of drafting a front 7 defender at 10 versus where we have guys rated.
Yeah, I think you always have that plan in the draft room too, and you have that unless player. And to me, that is Rashawn Slater. Look, we want to go defense, we want to go D-line, we want to go corner, unless Rashawn Slater's there with some age in this offensive line and some injuries. To me, I'm not passing him up. He can play any of the 5 positions. To me, I'm turning in the card. And I don't know who I need to talk to at ESPN to get the social clip, but if somebody could send me Orlovsky saying, I don't know anything about defensive line play, just cut it right there. And then I would like to be able to hold on to that for my personal use.
Hey, DJ, we'll get that for you.
Times will have that uploaded for you.
We're going to add Marcus Spears as well, because he wants to see that also. Another thing, too, apparently if you want to get on NFL Live, just change your name to Dan. I didn't forget about the rest of my questions, guys. 5 topics down, 5 more to go. Matt and DJ hanging out here. So, DJ, who is the top pass catcher in this draft?
For me, it's Kyle Pitts. I mean, he is so rare, and you watch all the tight ends and he's special, and then you go watch the corners in the SEC, the best conference in football, and he cleans up on all of them. I mean, they all match up with him, and he tears them all up. So to me, he's the best.
Yeah, we're doing 10 questions because we're 10 days away from the draft. Matt, who's the best defensive player in this draft?
There aren't many great ones, as we were just talking about, but I think Micah Parsons from Penn State is still the best. I know there are some questions about maturity maybe, but he is a great athlete. 6'3", 245 pounds, running in the 4.4 range. He is the modern linebacker that can do everything you need, whether it's stuffing the run, rushing the quarterback, which he's very good at, and he's athletic enough to really excel in coverage.
DJ, we know the top 5 QBs, right? But who's going to be the 6th quarterback off the board?
Well, I think it's a battle between Kellen Mond and Davis Mills from Stanford. I'm going to go Davis Mills, and he ends up being that guy. I know there's 11 starts. There's not a lot to go off of. But you could just see in his pro day, he'd shed the knee brace that you see when he's playing. He's moving around really well, and he can really spin the football. There's a reason why he was the #1 quarterback coming out of high school. This kid has a lot of ability.
David Shaw said he reminds him of Andrew Luck. So, Matt, who is the most undervalued player in this draft?
If we had more games, it might be Davis Mills. I'm going to stick with my guy Justin Fields, though, because we just have this disconnect of where he's rated versus where we expect him to be drafted. And I'm going to continue to fight the fight of Justin Fields. If we're going to draft on potential, I want the guy who's 6'3", 230, and runs a 4.4. Like, that's the potential I want to build on. Oh, and he never lost a game in conference as well, so that was pretty good, too.
Spoken like a true scout. Last one, DJ, give us a surprise first-round pick.
Well, it seems like we always see a pass rusher that can sneak in there. And so I'll go Peyton Turner out of Houston, who is just a big, hulking dude that can rush with speed and power. He dropped a little weight this year, and I thought you saw a more explosive version of him. You watch what he did in the BYU game. He jumps off the screen. So to me, he'd be the one that could sneak into the back end of the first round. He's a defensive lineman, so Orlovsky hasn't seen him. But trust me, he is a really good player.
Dan, you are never going to live that down, and I absolutely love it. It's the best thing that's ever happened here. Hey, DJ, thanks so much for hanging out with us here. Of course, you can catch Daniel Jeremiah on NFL Network's coverage of the draft next week. We cannot wait to see you guys. Also on ESPN and ABC, we will have all types of coverage on our networks as well to make sure that you catch for the draft. All right, coming up, Trevor Lawrence has been the consensus #1 pick for basically forever. We'll tell you, though, why he'll look much different in the NFL. It has to do with